morning. I guess my presentation is between you and the coffee now. But I hope you will be able to follow me and also make it fun for me to talk with you by asking questions. It's always fun. So I'm Rieger. I'm the program director for arXiv. Let me see hands if you have heard of arXiv or used arXiv. All right, I think predominantly you did.
The mic is here.
Oh, okay. Oh, boy. That's all right. I'll try, but that's not fun.
I know.
Because I need to show certain things. So, this group knows arXiv quite well. So I'm going to have my introduction rather simple and fast. But arXiv.org was established in 1991 by Paul Ginsberg, who is a faculty member at Cornell Physics and Information Science. And when he came to Cornell, he brought arXiv with him. And I want to discuss with you arXiv kind of from different angles. And I will first of all want to talk with you about arXiv as an archive. I think you are by now familiar after a day of workshop what a preprint is. And arXiv is known. arXiv is one of the first preprint systems, and it's known to be a preprint archive. But one thing I want to tell you very quickly is that in arXiv, we have published versions. We have also what we call post-print. Post-print is a paper is published in a journal, but afterwards you may improve it, you may make some corrections and print it and publish it again. Also, arXiv has, although limited, but has some slides, some small data sets. So although the core is preprints, it is more than preprints. Again, you are quite familiar with probably arXiv's mission. Those of you who know, arXiv is a server to help scholars disseminate their findings rapidly. And of course, it's good to have a priority in discovery. But more importantly, it is a mechanism to improve work by feedback. I think one of the good questions that you might ever discuss is, what are your incentives for open access? I mean, clearly, open access has a wonderful philosophical value. It's an ideology. But when you look at surveys that conduct studies about how scholars select journals to publish, open access is not at the top 4 of their reasons. They publish in journals because it's in their subject domain, because it's well respected, because those journals will be reaching a broad audience. So, we love open access, we want to promote it, but let's be realistic to that. As scholars, open access is not always at the top of your list as you are selecting a venue for it. I know it's very small, but one of the reasons arXiv is so popular is it's rather easy to submit articles, papers to it. The easy part is the actual submission process, but I must note that to be able to submit a paper to arXiv, you need to register. And by registering to arXiv, in a way, you are going through a very self-evaluation process that you are actually a scholar. You are within a legitimate organization. So that is one way of evaluating who you are. And you fill a form, a very simple form, and you submit the article. And after you submit the article, it goes through a moderation process. We have 165 moderators from all around the world focusing on different topics. As the papers come in, we have human curation and also automated curation. We have staff who use some automated tools and sometimes use their own labor to channel these papers to the right individuals for them to review it. And arXiv is not peer-reviewed, but the process that we consider moderation includes moderators. They want to make sure that the paper has some scientific value, it has some interesting issues, it's research paper, and that there are no format issues. There's an index, there's a bibliography, references, so on and so forth, that it has a scholarly form to it, and that it is classified correctly. So here's what happens, many scholars all around the world, when they wake up, what we hear is that with their coffee, chai latte, orange juice, whatever they are drinking for breakfast, they turn on their computer, they click, and they look at the new papers submitted and presented that day in their subject area. Because arXiv is broad, we get 600 papers a day. We don't want to be reviewing 600 papers a day. So classification is very important to make the best use of your time so that you'll be looking at articles, papers that are related to your area. And also we look at text overlap to make sure that, there's not redundant repetition of text from either from your own work or taken from elsewhere. And then after a paper is accepted, there's an abstract and full text available in PDF. You can download it, you can print it, and it has an arXiv ID. And we call arXiv an archive. You mean archive with X and archive, because after you submit, there are only specific conditions in which you're allowed to take it down. Because it's an archive, we want to make sure that it has enduring value, that if someone sees the URL for a paper that you submitted and wants to look at it, we want it to be still there. So that's why we also consider arXiv and archive with preservation long-term value. I already mentioned to you that we get 600 new submissions a day. Now there are almost 1.5 million papers. Every second, we get about 7 downloads from all around the world. And I already mentioned the volunteer moderators to you. I want to talk a bit about the composition of arXiv, but let me just take a second and see, are you following me? Do you have any questions? Any questions so far? arXiv began in 1992, 91, 92, with focus on high energy physics. So many people, when I tell them that I'm the program director for arXiv, they would say, oh, high energy physics. And I always correct them, yeah, high energy physics is the foundation. But if you look this graphic here, this graphic shows how arXiv is growing from 1992 to 2018. This is high energy physics. Look, we started with high energy physics, but look at what's happening in 2018. The physics related fields are 44% of the papers submitted in 2018. And the highest rate was as a discipline, computer science. It's at 26% now. And it's growing like crazy. If it goes like this, it's going to go to the computer science archive in a few years. And mathematics, I believe, 24%. And arXiv is growing. We now have electric engineering, we have system science, we have economics, and we have a long list of new fields that want to join. So that's really what makes arXiv valuable, although its branding is still associated with physics, and physics is important. So by no means I want to downplay that. Similar to Gail's, my slides will be available for you. So I know there are some details. You are welcome to look at them afterwards too. This is, again, I know it's extremely small, but this graph shows registered authors by country. And that it's from 2013 to 2017. The first one is the US. You see, the high up is US, then it is Germany, United Kingdom, China, France, Italy, Japan, India, Canada, Spain, Russia. The reason I'm showing you this is another really important thing about arXiv that we're extremely proud of is it's a very international in coverage. I would say only 25–30% of the downloads and submissions are coming from the US. The rest is from the rest of the world. I believe about 20% is coming from Europe. China is a major producer and consumer of information. India, Russia. So that's really one of the things that makes really fun to work with arXiv. It's a global service. Business model. You asked Gail an excellent question about how much does it take to do open access publishing. As someone who kind of is responsible from the overall operation for arXiv, I can tell you that whether you have the highest subscription price or it's free, everything costs money. especially if you want to have a quality service and if you want to have sustainability. Sustainability meaning that you have the capacity to continue your publishing initiative. So I like talking about business models when it comes to arXiv, because some people think that it's magic. arXiv is out there, it's open access, someone pays for it, it's going to be there 50 years from now, but it takes a lot of effort to maintain arXiv, lots of effort and lots of money. It costs us $1.5 million, not including the volunteer help, volunteer engagement. As I mentioned, there are 165 volunteer moderators. We have Paul Ginspark still heavily helping us with arXiv. So that's actually one of the reasons open access is so complicated. It's not only an ideology, but it's also a business model. You want, of course, everyone favors open access, the global access by all kinds of users, but somebody needs to support it. I'm not going to go through this, but just to tell you, this slide aims to tell you that we try to diversify our revenues. We have some funds coming from Cornell. Actually, only 10% comes from Cornell. The remaining funds come from foundations and from research institutions, libraries, and research labs. So as you're engaging with open access publications, as you are thinking about publishing, ask them about their sustainability model. There are sometimes charismatic people start these new open access journals, but what happens if they retire? Continuity is an amazingly important aspect of scholar communication because it is for the record, right? That you want it to be available 20 years from now or 5 years from now, in certain cases. In a nutshell, this is our organizational structure. I work closely with Stein Sugerston, who's an astrophysics faculty at Pennsylvania State University, and that we work together as an executive team. And we have a management team focusing on IT, users, and also community engagement. Overall, we have 12 FTE, not including the volunteer help. Governance model, again, that's another thing about sustainability. You want to make sure that there's an advisory group, there's transparency, there's accountability. I think these are also very important aspects of open access. arXiv is 27 plus years old, and it still predominantly relies on legacy technologies. So a couple of years ago, we started renewing the technology. And it's difficult in two ways. One of them is we have a very important service to run, so we can't take a couple of years off and say, we'll be back, let us just renew the system. So we are continuing our service as we are trying to renew the architecture. And also, it's a very frugal operation. Given the fact that there are 7 papers downloaded every second and we receive 600 papers a day, $1.5 million is not a lot of money if you think about the reach of arXiv. So therefore, this is kind of work in progress, but with the next generation arXiv, we are just trying to modernize the architecture. Maybe more than 2 years ago, actually I think it has been, 2.5 years ago, we conducted a user study. So basically, I don't know if anybody has seen it, but we put a little pop-up and it said, please help us evaluate arXiv. It was a short survey. In 2.5 weeks, we received 36,000 results. I mean, it's dream, yeah? My goal was, I said, we have to have 3,000. So I was kind of saying, we have to. We were just amazed. I want to share with you a few findings because I think these are quite revealing. When we asked them what's their wish list, predominantly they focused on search function, and actually we improved quite a bit. We made some improvements and continue to improve the search function. And whether it's open access or paywalls, it's becoming more and more important for papers to be linked to underlying data, related slides, codes. So this is in arXiv users' wish list that it's an area that we are looking into expanding and strengthening. And the third one is being able to look at an arXiv article and click on citations to go to the papers. And actually, we have piloted this successfully this year. It's still semi-pilot because we focused on computer science, but I think it's a wonderful path of work for us because arXiv should be a part of kind of this global network, not only a static paper that you are reading arXiv. Some interesting opinions when we asked our users about, what is arXiv's role in scientific communication? It was like 50-50 divided. Some of them said, open access, you should be really, you should be fighting for open access. You should be promoting open access. arXiv should just get rid of publishers. And the other 50% said, do what you are doing well. You are a preprint server. You haven't gotten any journals out of business yet, and that's not your goal because we coexist very peacefully. Just do what you are doing well. So it was quite interesting. And if I were to say, do your business, don't try to change what's happening, was just a bit higher actually than be a revolutionary, just bring the revolution on. Predominantly, our users want us to be very careful about change. And there were so many intriguing, some of them very funny remarks about don't make arXiv a social media, like, dislike. I think my next slide in a way relates to it. We asked them, we said, would you like us to add a rating feature so that you can start rating articles or annotating? Again, it was 50-50. And you know what the main concern was for individuals who kind of really cautious about the social media aspects of arXiv? Can you guess? What would you be worried about?
Growth often will be like trolls online. People just like using the social media to bring down someone else's work.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Are there other guesses why you as a scholar would be really kind of worried about this whole ranking and annotations thing? Well, what you said is definitely one of the issues we heard, but the others were they want arXiv to be a scholarly forum for exchange, not for judging. So they like the neutrality of arXiv. And the other thing was that not everyone is able to engage in a civil discourse. If you actually look at annotations, rating, we are human beings. Some of us are nasty. So adding any of these features to arXiv would require that we have also quality control to make sure that we have a scholarly and diplomacy and also discourse that is really appropriate for the platform. Again, this is another slide. I know it's very, very tiny to read, but 72% of those responded they wanted arXiv to stick to the core mission. Again, we have scientists, they are very innovative, they are forward-looking, but they were just a bit conservative because they like what they see in arXiv, and they worry that if we go with trends, we may lose that. I'm just going to say a few words before wrapping up about the state of arXiv. By the way, one of the findings of the arXiv user study was overall, 95% of them were either very happy or happy with arXiv. And it's interesting because arXiv, there's nothing sophisticated. Even the interface, it's like from 1970s, but people like it. As I said, I know it's almost 18 minutes. I want to kind of turn it over to you if you have any questions. But again, as you explore as new scholars, publishing, open access, please don't forget about sustainability. Sustainability is the publishing enterprise capacity for endurance, for capacity to be transparent, accountable, and, be here 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So when we run arXiv, we think about many issues. We want financial stability. We want stable architecture. We want to be sensitive to scientific cultures because after all, if arXiv doesn't pay attention to scientific ethos, arXiv is not going to be used. Curatorial policies. And I want to say a few words about scholarly communication. arXiv really is not an island. arXiv is a part of the scholarly communication framework. Therefore, we're also paying attention to what is happening out there. Some of you might have heard that 2 years ago, Open Science Framework came up with a open source preprint service called OSF preprints. So it's a free service. So as a community, as a faculty member or as a society, you can use this application to publish your preprints. And now there are almost 24 of them, from social sciences to psychology, from Earth. I just saw new media. I'm watching this with joy, but also with concern, because I don't know which one of those 24 preprints will be here a year from now or 3 years from now. Because they are experimental, they have lots of energy, but many of them don't have the sustainability framework. They are very often run by, again, someone with great energy, 2 faculty members coming together. So I'm wishing them the best, but I'm just highlighting that although, as I said, we are very proud of this movement, we are really not sure how successful these would be. Public access mandates. Have you heard of public access mandates, or do you know what it means? Anybody heard of public access mandates? You know, science depends on funding, right? And funding very often comes from state, federal agencies, different governmental organizations. Last several years, including the US, many funding organizations are expecting the outcomes of the work funded by their agencies to be openly accessible. The US, for instance, NSF, NASA, they all have now public access regulations. In US, it's a bit more conservative because they give you a period for embargo. But in Europe now, there's a plan called Plan S. If you are a tweeter, you might be hearing about it. Many European agencies, and now China is on board, India is getting ready on board, Gates is on board, many foundations, I think there are now up to 35 funders from all around the world. They are requiring that if you get money from them, when you publish papers, immediately they need to be open access. So you have to work with open access journals. This is extremely controversial because some scholars believe that it's against the intellectual freedom for scientists' right to choose where they will be publishing it, whether it's a paywall or when it's free. Inevitably, you will be hearing about this. It's a really big deal because it's entire Europe and it's affecting every field. That there are actually some even movements, signing letters, so on and so forth, by scholars to give feedback to Plan S. I'm going to just conclude to telling you that arXiv is now a program under computing and information science. For years, we were housed at the library. arXiv is a rather standalone organization. It's intentionally done because we want to be able to select the steward just to make sure that it is the right steward to give us the appropriate organization structure. We loved working at the library. Now I hope we will love working at CIS, but although I work for Cornell, I think my primary affiliation is really arXiv, which I see it as a global database. If you're interested in arXiv, there's a public wiki and there's a blog that will tell you about how we are doing all kinds of interesting things. It looks like I talked a few minutes more than I should, so I'm going to stop here.
Time for one question. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think, yeah, please do contact me if you have any questions or other issues.